Welcome to Rumble season, my friend, and I'm not talking about the thing you used to buy for your N64 controller. I'm talking about the Raw version. Given that we are creeping up to number 40 of these, though, which is absolutely terrifying, I am Simon Miller, and everybody in the What Coach offices got together. We've kind of voted on the people that may have won the damn thing, and it didn't work out exactly as intended. It's just the law of averages. You can't hit home runs all of the time. Make sure you get in the comments and let us know your opinions too. Let's go. Number 10, Hacksaw Jim Duggan in 1988. So this is not Hacksaw Jim Duggan's fault because, of course, this was the very first Royal Rumble that was showcased on television. WWE, or the WWF as it was known then, was still working out the kinks. Now, Duggan winning actually did make sense because his star was on the rise in the late 80s. Otherwise, there's nothing on the line here, which meant if a non-wrestling fan came in and said, oh man, what are they fighting for? You have to go, I don't know, like stakes, or pride, or, you know, just so in the locker room they can go, I won the first Royal Rumble. Who wouldn't want that? You also only get 20 entrants, but none of the gimmicks are here, and we aren't talking about every man for himself or both feet have to touch the floor. It's also really, really, really long. I suppose it just lacks the novelty that nowadays it does have. That's okay. It is number 1. That's also why you do have to whack it out at number 10. If you were going to go through every single Royal Rumble, well, you can probably skip this one. Number 9, Sheamus in 2012. So I think this one is ridiculous. Yep, I pretty much got outvoted here, but some people do think the Irishman deserved to have a nod. Though actually, I do think you can figure it out. Because my take is that Sheamus burst onto the main scene with so much palaver in 2009, when he did win the World Championship, that when he also won the Royal Rumble in 2012, there were just a few individuals going, no, stop shoving him down my throat. The thing is, though, nobody should have been clipping Sheamus's wings back then, because the roster was in desperate need of some new blood. Look at the man, he's absolutely ginormous. I met him once, it gave me the heebie-jeebies. There's probably some retroactive thinking in this too, because yes, Sheamus would go on to not main event WrestleMania. In fact, he was in the opening match. This is when he booted Daniel Bryan in the head and won the World Championship in about 18 seconds. Also, when you do go through everybody else, who should have won it? Like CM Punk and Chris Jericho were in the other world title program, so they were going to be fine. And yes, on this night at WrestleMania, it was John Cena versus The Rock, and neither of those guys were going to win the Rumble. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered if Steve Austin had come back. Nobody was going to go on later than The Rock versus John Cena. So actually, I think you could make a pretty good argument that we were trying to make new stars, and we were trying to light a new rocket under Sheamus's ass. But I think this was perfectly fine, and all the other problems are actually more exclusive to WWE as a whole. That's right. Number 8, Triple H in 2016. Which also ties into this one because yes, in 2016, Vince McMahon had decided, well listen everyone, I'm going to get Roman Reigns over whether you like it or not. The problem is, the answer was not. What really ticked the audience off, though, is that rather than just turn Roman heel, which as we know today would have been a great idea, we continually put him in positions where he didn't have a hope in hell. Still feel sorry for Roman Reigns from this period. There's nothing he could have done. And that is why on this night at the Royal Rumble, everybody thought he was going to become the WWE champion. When WWE went, we've got a better idea, and Triple H is going to win it instead. Now listen, you can work this one out for yourself as well. Triple H was such a good heel. Everybody had decided, well, I'm sure he can turn the tide. But as we know, in 2025, it wouldn't have mattered if, I don't know, the devil, the actual devil, had walked down the aisle. Everybody was still going to boo Roman. I mean, do you remember that time when Hunter tried to murder Reigns on Raw? What did the fans do? They all cheered. That's when everybody was like, you know what? We're totally boned. The other part to this as well is that when we got down to the final 2, it was Triple H taking on Dean Ambrose. Actually, this goes back to my Sheamus conversation. In 2016, people wanted to see new blood get pushed, and if Dean had thrown out Triple H, well, that's a massive game changer. Again, go watch this Rumble and listen to the fans. It also would have meant you could have done the 2 former Shield members at that WrestleMania. But also, look, that's just what WWE does. They always want a legacy talent in those spots. And Triple H versus Roman Reigns was fine, I suppose. I mean, it's just another asterisk on the crazy ride of the big dog. Number 7, John Cena in 2013. Because it was meant to be once in a lifetime, that's why the audience was annoyed. In hindsight, why we ever thought that The Rock versus John Cena was only ever going to be a one and done, I don't know. But I guess that's just suspending disbelief. You don't do that, why even watch wrestling? It also told you that when The Rock did take on CM Punk at the Royal Rumble, that CM Punk was going to lose. And that's where the beef is here. So many people are like, this is CM Punk's WrestleMania. Even more so because he's been the champion for like 434 days. I still fall on the side of the fence where I'm like, we probably could have just done a three-way, although make it elimination three-way, and then Punk could have been there for 5 minutes. When you do go, poop, thanks for coming, because then he does get his WrestleMania main event. John Cena versus The Rock was once in a lifetime. Instead, we all bought into that stupid catchphrase. Also, though, let's not be funny here. It is John Cena The Rock. Just talked about it. You ain't gonna find anyone bigger. This was also during a time when the anti-Cena brigade were just out in force. They were like, it doesn't matter what he does, or what he says, or who he beats, or who he loses to, we're just going to boo him. Now, it did make for a very interesting WWE, and the atmosphere was crazy, but after a while, to use a very modern word, but it did get a little bit toxic. Number 6, Mr. McMahon in 1999. I mean, it pissed people off, but that was the intention, because Vince McMahon and the corporation walked into the Royal Rumble and they were like, hey, Steve Austin, we're going to make sure you don't win. The other main source of contention was that Vince McMahon is Vince McMahon, and he wasn't a wrestler, so why the hell didn't we just do our story beats with Stone Cold and given this spot to somebody else and sent them up to the moon? Secondly, if his job was just to stop Austin, which they did do, why, in terms of a creative point of view, couldn't we have just left it there? I think it comes down to the fact that Vince McMahon had booked so many Royal Rumbles. One day he woke up and thought, wait a minute, I can win it if I want. So he did. It was also the first sign that maybe this feud was taking over a little bit too much, although once again, go and look at the ratings, the numbers, and the financials, the World Wrestling Federation was flying. It did, however, expose the company in the sense they had nobody else ready to go, which is why they were so lucky The Rock did hit the highs that he did do. I get that nobody was going to be able to follow Steve Austin, but outside of these two guys, well, go and look what happened in 2002. Of course, when we got to WrestleMania, we still did The Rock versus Austin anyway, so I guess you could say we did think outside the box here, but the Royal Rumble winner position is taken quite seriously. That's why you always have to tiptoe around it. Number 5, Big John Studd. Now, the core idea here was very fun because the Royal Rumble structure was taking shape, because not only do we have 30 competitors, but with all the entrances, this thing went over an hour. You also did lean into the whole every man for himself because Demolition were in at number 1 and 2, and this was crazy, and Big John Studd winning was fine. It was the first time we went, oh my God, he's such a gigantic man. Nobody's going to be able to throw him over the top rope. The only reason he does get thrown in at number 5, though, is because this didn't help him at all. And all everybody was talking about afterwards was the mega powers exploding, or imploding. And of course, they were going to go on to main event WrestleMania, whereas Big John Studd was basically not going to do anything at all. I mean, he was the special guest referee at Mania between Jake Roberts and Andre the Giant. This is a damn Royal Rumble winner. And look, it was really nice that Studd did get his moment because his career was on the final part of its run. But again, if you are ranking the importance of Royal Rumble winners, well again, he just won a Royal Rumble, then he was moved to the side. Seems somewhat ridiculous. Number 4, Randy Orton in 2017. Straight up, Randy Orton was a good choice to win the Royal Rumble in 2017. Just the way that WWE went about it. Because yes, we've already talked about it, but this was another time when Vince McMahon just stuck his feet in the floor. It's like, man, we've got to make Roman Reigns become the most popular person ever, when they just went with Randy Orton instead. It's just so strange. It just made for such a crazy booking decision, because what we were doing here is we were doing a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the hardcore fans who understood that there was a discrepancy between the audience and what was going on behind the scenes, which is why we pretended that Roman was going to win, when from nowhere, Randy Orton got the victory, and that was meant to placate everyone. Whereas deep down on our Tootsie Toes, we were like, no, we just want consistent stories and we want to be heard. I also think people got bummed out a couple of months later because Roman Reigns was still in the main event of WrestleMania. This is when he did indeed take on The Undertaker, and I understand the importance of that match. But Taker had already lost to Brock Lesnar a couple of years beforehand, and the whole point of WrestleMania is that it's meant to be headlined by the Royal Rumble winner. Orton didn't get that at all. Instead, he was match 10 on a way too long card. And he did win the WWE title from Bray Wyatt. This was the same match when they did that overhead projection stuff. And the picture in the ring, well, it did not look PG. So I'm just going to say that around 2017, WWE had just lost its way. And again, it's because they weren't listening to the fans. That constant back and forth, well, it was always a bit of a problem. Number 3, Brock Lesnar in 2002. And man, going off that last sentence, that was absolutely the issue here. Because there was most definitely internal creative going on in 2022, which is why Brock Lesnar just came out at number 30, eliminated around about 47 people, don't try and do the maths there, when he won the thing. Honestly, he couldn't have been in for more than 3 minutes. It just felt so lazy, especially because it meant the main event of WrestleMania was going to be Brock taking on Roman Reigns, and by this time we had seen that match 4,769.4 times. People were just desperate for something new, which is why Cody Rhodes returning on night one of that WrestleMania blew the roof off the place. Not just because of the, oh my gosh, how is this happening? But it felt like fresh blood. In terms of the Rumble as well, Brock Lesnar had already lost to Bobby Lashley earlier on in the evening. So it's just so confusing. It's like, we've seen you, Brock. Nobody needs to see you again. Number 2, Alberto Del Rio in 2011. I mean, really, in many ways, this was the same as Roman Reigns. Vince McMahon decided, Alberto, you are going to be our brand new Mexican babyface. Even though 1, he was much better as a heel, and 2, even after we turned him, well, here it comes again, the fans still wanted to boo him. And sure, by this point we were still figuring all of this out, but you could feel it in the ether what the company wanted to do. And again, Del Rio did go to WrestleMania, where he took on Edge, and he lost. So it was like, okay, again, it's not the main event, and 2, he wasn't even able to follow up on this. What are we doing to this Royal Rumble slot? From there, it was another scrap with the audience, and of course, this was before Roman Reigns, but you could still feel it when WWE even got rid of Ricardo Rodriguez. He was one of the best parts of the act. 2011 is also when we decided to throw 40 people into the Royal Rumble, and let's just call this for what it was. Everyone was like, well, we have done a lot of these matches. How should we freshen it up? But we didn't think about the stories in the middle of the match or the feuds we could build towards WrestleMania. It was just like, well, why don't we increase the numbers? I've said it once, I'll say it twice. That is lazy. But 1, Roman Reigns in 2015. So it is the culmination of everything we have talked about. Another reason we did have such a rickety road afterwards, because finally we went, fine, give the Royal Rumble to Roman Reigns in 2015. But even then, we just had to tiptoe around this. I'm saying it again. WWE was so aware that Philadelphia was probably going to boo the big dog, they sent out The Rock to try and help with this. What happened to Dwayne Johnson? He got booed too. Look at this picture. Look at his face. He knows he wasn't happy about it either. Once again, we used Kane and the Big Show to try and trick the fans as well and go, oh, do you want one of these 2 to win? No, you don't. But actually, if you do go and watch this now, I think Philly would have preferred it. That's the kind of mess we were in. I think Bray Wyatt said it best, but of course here we're talking about Roman Reigns. Anyone but you. I do want to make it clear that none of this was Roman Reigns' fault, because we've seen what he can do when he is booked right. Imagine we had the Tribal Chief back then. It would have been absolutely glorious. But as always, WWE was just too stubborn, and they refused to change him, which is why this has to be number 1. I mean, Rey Mysterio got booed the year before this because he came out at number 30. And I bet everyone backstage before they came out here was like, oh man, I'm going to get cheered. And it ain't even anything to do with me. So it was just Groundhog Day. And though once again, Roman did go and figure it out. But from now on, if you are booking a wrestling company and you have a big old battle royal, sometimes just use your ears. And it'll make everyone's life a lot easier. Now, of course, please do leave me a comment below and make sure you rejiggle this list and let me know what you think, who is the worst Rumble winners of all time are. Like the video, share the video and subscribe. Click the video on the screen for yet more Royal Rumble love. Definitely going to be okay. That's a terrible thing to say. But otherwise, have a good time, my friends. See you soon.